All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my channel, Math Made Easy with Terry in 10 minutes. Today, we'll be talking about sum and differences of ratio. Okay. As usual, try as much as possible before to review the fourth video in this series. The essence of that is why I want you to review, because there I listed all the formulas as well as try to make some basics for the remaining videos in this series. So today we're going to talk about the sum and differences of ratios, which is similar to sum of product formula. So some of you might see it as sum of product formula, but very similar to that. So usually, similar to all other topics we talked about, we apply the same 5 rules as well here. Okay, so number 1, what you do, you write the formula down. Okay, so you write the formula. Then after writing down the formula, you substitute the given angles. So after substituting the given angles, the next thing you have to then find the values of the trig expressions, okay? So you have to find the values of the trig expressions. So number 3, you have to find the values of the trig expression. So after finding the values of the trig expressions, the next thing that you have to do then is that you have to then substitute this value into the equation, all right? So when you find the values, you have to now substitute this value into the trig equation. So you substitute these values into the equation. And after substituting it, then finally you what? You simplify. Okay, so this is exactly the same as what we've been solving earlier. So what you do, you write down the formula. After you write down the formula, you substitute the given angles. After you substitute it, then you now find the values of the trig expressions. Then you substitute the values into the equation. Then you simplify. All right, good. So let's pick some examples here and see how far we can go. So number 1, let's say we are told to express differences, the difference of cosine, for instance. Maybe, for instance, we're told to express the difference of cosine of a particular expression as a product of trig functions using the sum of product formula, okay? So let's say express the differences of cosines. So let's say we have, let's make it cos 4x minus cos x, all right? So let's say something like cos 4x minus cos x as a product of trig functions. Okay, as a product of trig functions using the sum of product formula. Okay, so if you can go back and look at the first video, I told you something about that for the differences of ratios. I told you that cos A. Let me see if I can use another different color here to make it so. I can say cos A minus cos B will be equal to, I said it's minus 2 sine A plus B over 2. Then sine A minus B over 2. Does that make sense? So I gave you this formula I think in the third video as well, where I listed the formula. So one of the things I listed to you was that cos A minus cos B is equal to minus 2 sine A plus B over 2 sine A minus B over 2. So then we can apply this directly to this as well, okay? To the question, we can say, therefore, we can now say then cos 4x minus cos x. Now, 4x here is going to be the A, and x here is going to be the B. So it's going to be minus 2 sine 4x plus x over 2 sine 4x minus x over what? 2. All right? Then you simplify, and this will give you minus 2 sine 4x plus x will give you 5x. And it's going to be 5x over 2 sine 4x minus x will give you what? 3x over what? 2. And that will be the answer for that. Is that okay? So now that means you can see we've expressed the sum and differences of the ratios as a product, sum of the product or formula, right? So that's what is usually called. Let me solve one more example. Let's say we have, for instance, we have another different expression, and we have a sum this time. In the previous example, we had differences. So what we had cos 4x minus cos x. What about if we had something like cos 8x plus, let's say, cos 2x, okay? Now, in this case as well, I want us to also express this as a product. So basically having the same thing, express the sum of cosine when we have cos 8x plus cos 2x as a what? As a product of trig functions, okay? So we have cos 8x plus cos 2x. Now, I also told you that when you have cos A plus cos B, okay, the same thing as saying 2 cos A plus B over 2, and we have cos A minus B over 2. All right. So in this case here, our A is 8x and our B is 2x. So that means I can easily then substitute this. So cos 8x plus cos 2x will give me 2 cos to be 8x plus 2x divided by 2 cos 8x minus 2x divided by 2. And this is going to give me 2 cos 8 plus 2 will give me 10x divided by 2 cos 8 minus 2 is going to give me what? 6x divided by 2. We can further simplify this. 2 can go in 10 5 times, so that's going to be cos 5x. 2 can go in 6 3. It's going to give me cos what? 3x. So the answer is going to be 2 cos 5x cos 3x. All right. I'm just tempted now to just add one more example. I'm going to add a question on sine. All right. So let's pick the same thing. Let's assume we have sine this time. Let's say we have sine 225 minus sine 135. Okay. Now, you can pause the video and try and solve it. Then after, you can come back and solve it. Now, you notice as well, this is differences for sine, all right? And if you had watched the previous video, I told you that when you have sine A minus sine B is equal to 2 cos A plus B divided by 2 and sine A or B minus A, sorry, because for sine, you have to then swap the B to the A. So sine B minus A divided by what? 2. All right. So similarly, you just apply the formula here. So because we now know our A is going to be 225 and our B is 135, so we can easily then say sine 225 minus sine 135 will be equal to 2 cosine. A is going to be what? 225 plus 135 divided by what? 2 divided by sine. B minus A, so it's going to be 135 minus 225 divided by what? 2. Okay, so now we can then further simplify this. So we can add and divide. So when you add 225 plus 135 divided by 2 is going to give us 180. So it's going to be 2 cos 180. When you have 135 minus 225 divided by 2, you just press your calculator, and this should give you around 45. Okay, then we are now done. So we can now use the calculator to get this. So it's going to be 2 multiplied by cos 180 multiplied by sine what? 45. Okay, so we know that cos 180 is going to be minus 1. And sine 45 is 1 over what? Root 2. So, and this is going to give you equal to minus 2 over what? Root 2. Now, in the previous video about sorts, I told you can't leave your answer in sort form like this. So you have to simplify this further. So you have to rationalize the denominator. So we're going to have minus 2 over root 2 multiplied by root 2 over root 2, okay? So if you don't know how to rationalize sorts, you have to go back and watch my previous videos on sorts, the 10 rules of sorts, and rules of indices as well. So when you now do this, it will now be minus 2 root 2 divided by root 2 times root 2 will give you root 4, and which is the same thing as say minus 2 root 2 divided root 4 is the same thing as 2, right? This 2 we cancel this 2, and then you have minus what? Root 2. So the answer for sine of 225 minus sine of 135 is going to be minus what? Root 2. And that is that. So what I can advise, try as much as possible to solve as much questions as you can from the textbook. And just make sure that, like what I said with the rules, the first thing, you write down the formula, try to know the formula. Most of the times, the formulas are being written on the formula sheet. So you don't really need to, most of the time, memorize it. But most of these formulas, when you practice a lot, you get used to them, all right? Then when you've written the formula, you then have to substitute the given angles. Then you find the values of the trig expressions. You substitute these values into the equation, then you simplify. And then I solved an example on the differences of cosine. I did sum of cosine, and I solved one on differences of sine. All right, so the next video, I'm going to talk about product of ratios. Now, we're going to talk about product of ratios. Similarly, try to watch the 4th video in this series, and I wrote the formulas for that. So I'm going to see you in the next video. And if you have any question, feel free to stop me, all right? And send me a message, or you can also email me as well, and I'll get back to you, all right? All right, thank you very much.